There we go. Hey, everybody, we're live.
That's what it says. We're live.
Well, that's how I knew that we were live. I said, "You're live." I can read, as it turns out.
Yes.
So, welcome to season 2, episode 8 of.
We're the Inglorious Pastords.
Yes, we are.
Roger and Bruce Martin, and coming to you with season 2, episode.
Well, I just said that.
All right, episode 8.
Are you? You're thinking they didn't get it the first time around?
I
Right.
think
Did I
I
say
was
it too
talking while you were talking.
Oh,
Yes, so I was ignoring what you had to say.
this happens a lot in marriages.
I need counseling, don't I?
You didn't say that. Yes, I did. You weren't listening. Yes, I was. No, you weren't. It's that. Yes. So when we don't listen, bad things happen.
Hey, first week of the NFL finished. So with the first,
I don't want to talk about the first week of the NFL or the last 2 minutes of a particular game in the NFL.
It's actually the last 2 minutes of the first week.
We're like,
Bruce is a Denver Broncos fan.
We can't get a coach. We can't. Coaching. Coaching is
your
important.
Coach, is just not inspiring a lot of confidence right now. I'm sorry. I am following the Patriots.
Hey,
and
let's just stay 2 back. Let's just do that.
Let's just give everyone a head start.
I just don't. Okay, I'm sorry. The Broncos lost. They didn't need to, but they did.
Though a former Patriot really tried to help you out a great deal.
Lord of mercy. And the Patriots won, of course.
So
Did the Bucs win?
No.
Oh, Tom's not going to be able to help them. No one can help the Bucs.
Well, he threw a pick 6 and another interception.
Really?
So he didn't.
He's lost his juju.
He didn't help the cause either.
Wow, I had no idea.
He had some moments. It was not.
So you're saying the head office there at the Tampa Bay is going, scratchy.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this, and going into the season, I said I felt like the thing that Tom Brady's going to have the hardest time with. I said, what's he going to do
on third down without Edelman?
No, what's he going to do when something happens, coaching or otherwise, in a game that would never, ever happen?
Oh,
so,
yep.
So, first game, it happens. It's near the end of the first half, and New Orleans is 4th and 2.
Okay.
And they come up to the line, and Breeze hard counts, and Tampa Bay goes offsides and gives them a first down.
And what they mentioned in one game I was watching was, without fans in the stand, a hard count seems even louder.
See,
well, because that's all you can actually hear.
But so, did the world feel slightly more normal?
Yes, but I have a burning question.
Okay,
are you ready? When there's no fans,
you're going to ask me. I know what you're going to ask me.
Do they have canned fan noise that they're piping through the TVs for us?
They have to be, because
I'm looking. There's no one in the stands, but I'm hearing the same noises that I'm familiar with. So yes, I was like, it did feel a little more normal. I felt actually felt a little comfort.
Yeah,
Marlena did too. She came through our living room on Sunday. Goes, oh, football's on Sunday afternoon. For us, it marks fall.
Yeah,
it means fall is real.
Right.
Even if it's still 94 degrees out. Right. Fall's here because football's on.
Yeah. No, that's a little what I was getting at. Though the empty stadiums had the same thing. I'm watching the game, and I hear the cheering.
Right.
And they've already shown the 2 end zones that are empty, the crowds. So I said, maybe there are some crowds to the side, but at a different point, they pan to the side. Nope. So the only people in the stands were the practice squad.
It reminded me of the early sitcoms that we would watch in the 70s, and they had the canned laughter,
right.
And you would hear this one lady's voice every time, no matter across the board, no matter what show you're watching. Right. I'm like, it's the same studio audience over and over again.
And it was funny because a couple times the timing was a little off.
Oh yeah,
so it was just you could.
There's an interception, and a second and a half later, the crowd goes crazy.
You know, the other thing I noticed,
what?
There was no booing. They didn't have any canned booing.
You have to have that. If you're trying to, so someone in the booth has to make a call about a bad call.
Right.
Someone in the booth has to decide that's a bad call. Hit the boo button.
There has to be a boo track.
Boo.
There has to be. And of course, the other thing I noticed is
they didn't have a boo track.
They didn't have a boo track. They also didn't have a disruptive crowd noise track. So there was nothing. Down. Well, leading up to it, there's no cheering up to the call of the play. It was after the play. Then they're trying to decide, okay, this is a home crowd. So would we be cheering here or not?
Dial it up. Dial it up.
That part, it was great to sit and watch a football game, but it had to be canned, and it was weird.
Okay, so I didn't even notice this. Was there any cheerleaders? Because there's no one to lead in the cheer. I guess they could cheer the players.
I think at one point there was like a montage of pictures from the game, and at one point there was a quick little thing that came up that I think I saw maybe cheerleaders, but at no point in the game do I recall.
You know what else is missing? There was no halftime show. Can you imagine if we got the high school marching band in to play before absolutely no one? Bless their hearts. They're so excited.
Tony Romo said the thing he noticed was that the commentator for the Pats game was that no one was calling him names. They also didn't have the insult track for the commentators.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Does Tony get a lot of flack?
Oh, I think he was. Yeah, I'm sure he gets some stuff. He may have been having fun with that, but
if you've seen him in his Corona commercials, he likes to have fun.
Yes,
and I appreciate that about anyone.
So the world is semi-normal again. NFL's begun again. Pats are 1-0.
SEC
Denver's
starts
0-1.
this weekend. So here's my prediction. Tennessee's not going to win the SEC East. That's pretty safe.
Who is going to win the SEC East? Georgia?
I think Georgia will. I know they're saying Florida's good. I just don't buy it yet.
Okay.
So I think it'll be probably Georgia, Florida, Tennessee again.
You're hedging yourself for your Tennessee team. You'd like to believe that they could, but you don't want to jinx it.
Here's the problem. It's tough on your schedule when you have 8 SEC teams.
Right. We're not going to play any other.
No, here's the bright idea the SEC had. I tell you what. Let's make sure that everyone in our league except 2 teams have a losing season. We're going to only play SEC teams, and let's add 2 to the schedule. So I'm like, this is just me. I'm like, that can't be good for Tennessee. We didn't pick up LSU though, which was good. We picked up Auburn and Ole Miss. Oh yeah, so everyone's playing. The SEC is only playing the SEC this year.
Well, I'd heard that, but I didn't know they were adding.
So we got Auburn and we got Ole Miss.
Okay.
Ole Miss is not going to be a problem. Lane Kiffin. Are you kidding? But did you know he was coaching there?
I didn't know that.
Did I misspeak that?
I think you said Lane Kiffin.
That was entirely intentional.
It was not nice.
I'm not bitter about the whole Tennessee dumpster fire
that he created.
Well, we've never recovered from. I mean, I hope they're spraying down the container right now. But we're not ready to rise from the ashes quite yet.
Still a lot of ash to work through.
Oh,
there.
Lord have mercy. I mean, it's like, it's okay.
All right. Is there anything on in the world besides football?
Well, I don't know if you noticed it, but it's a political re-election year.
I have gotten wind of that.
Yes, Marlene and I.
And it smells. Yeah,
Marlene and I, we can't watch any network television because the ads are nonstop. And I'm talking for, let's go back to football. I'm talking for both teams. Right. They're just, I so wish that we would get a political candidate who would run for office and not say anything negative about the other person, not say anything about their record, but simply tell us what their plan was. Yeah. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I want to move toward. Here's how I would like to bring us to, without saying anything about the other person. Because my philosophy is you're running for an office. You're not running against a person. I know a lot, but no one's going to do that in our culture. It's got to be, we've got to go after this person, which I just think there's a better way to do that.
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 different lanes we've gone down, and this started years ago with politics and even sort of with the party system where things have become so built around the party.
Right.
So I'm thinking now, even with the ads, that the person, it dawned on me the other day, I'm watching someone make ad and, I'm here for you, Alabama. And I realized with what he was saying, I'm here for this sector of Alabama, this.
Right.
And you really don't want officials who are just making their decisions based on their party and the people who voted them in and their concerns. You want someone looking at the whole country. You want someone looking at the whole state and not just their constituency. And where we got to this place where the only thing I really am concerned about are the concerns about the people who voted for me. The people who didn't vote for me, I don't have the same kind of concern. And now we've just kind of come into, well, that's just normal. Well, of course, but it's not, and it hasn't always. I mean, I'm saying there's always been shades of that at some level.
But there's a difference in saying I'm here for all Alabamians,
right,
and I'm here for you,
right,
and the people that voted for me,
and where you can even have a conversation or talk about, here's some places where we disagree, and there's some, but to realize at certain points that the only thing maybe a particular candidate or a particular person in office is really focusing in on is ultimately their election or reelection.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, it's not even necessarily about how well they serve the whole state or country. It's what will get me re-elected, so that I might even lean into some things that I don't even feel as strongly about. Maybe in a few things I have some question about and so on, but I know that's what will get me elected. It's just
not only that, but you might begin to take credit for some things that happened in your state or a country that you actually had nothing to do with. Because it's that thing of I've got to make myself look better, and I've got to. So you may not have introduced any legislation that affected this thing, but well, this thing happened and it turned out to be a good thing, and so
right, or that kind of thing where any good thing that's going on while you're serving in your state or your country, whatever, you can immediately pin to you whether again you had anything. But I come back to what you were saying. Yeah, I would love to hear the platform, much more than the personal attacks and
a negative stream about another person. This is that, we sort of grew up in that household. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And a lot of you
that was a rule, right?
If you can't say something nice,
don't say anything at all.
And it's interesting because I know Mac Powell grew up with that because he wrote a whole song on it from the Third Day guy.
Yep.
If you can't say nothing good, don't say nothing at all. My mother would never say it that way because she was an English teacher. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. But there's a lot of beauty in that, which is because people ask me all the time, should I tell the truth all the time about everything? And I'm like, you don't necessarily need to say everything that goes on in your brain, even if it's true, because it may not be nice. It may not be helpful. For instance, and this happens all the time, even in church world, but gossip.
Okay.
You might be saying something about another person that's true. You're not lying.
Right.
But it does not need to be said.
Right.
It's something I love. Ephesians, I think 4:28 talks about that, which basically says, I want you to think for what's going to benefit the listener. So don't let anything unwholesome come out of your mouth, but only that which will benefit the person listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's not to benefit me or benefit what I look in relation to another person.
Yeah.
Maybe, Roger, that's it. Maybe Ephesians 4:28 would be the new platform for your political campaign.
My political campaign?
Yeah.
Tell me about my political campaign.
You're going to run for state senate.
All right.
You're going to win one for the little guys.
And you're going to run for president.
Well, it turns out anyone can. It's the law of the land.
Well, then jump right in there.
It's so, when I think about Jesus' take on serving was the rulers of this world lord it over people, and he said, not so with you. The funny thing is, I'm not sure that in the American kingdom, small K kingdom, that kind of leadership is really gonna.
It's a nice idea. We kind of like it as this, but of course that's not really what we're.
Well, here's the thing. In a weird way, people are attracted to power.
Yes.
And even, I was reading this morning, the whole thing with Peter, and Jesus is asking them, who are people saying that I am? And it's not because Jesus was unsure about his identity. I think he was kind of testing where the disciples were. They've seen these miracles. They've seen him. He's fed 5,000 people. He's fed 4,000 people. He's walked on water, for goodness sake. Right. But he's like, so what's the word on the street about me? And I'm like, well, some people think you're the prophet, maybe Elijah, Jeremiah. It's interesting. Herod thought it was John the Baptist because he had killed him. He thought he was coming back to haunt him. And then Jesus flips it and goes, but what do you guys think? Now this just seems like this would be a simple answer, because of everything they've experienced, when you take the whole book of Matthew to this point, I'm like, all of them in unison, all 12 are going to say, you are Messiah, the Son of God. But Peter just is the only one that really jumps out there with it. And of course, Jesus says, blessed are you. But then right after that, and this is so antithetical to our culture, Jesus said, don't put that on Facebook. Don't go social media with that. We don't want to get likes on that. He said, don't tell, and he warned them not to tell anyone that he was Messiah.
Yeah.
That is antithetical to, and I think that's part of why Peter even said, when Jesus right after that says, don't tell anyone I'm the Messiah, and I want to be handed over and killed by the chief priests and all that. And Peter takes him aside and says, never, Lord, that'll never happen to you. Because we're kind of drawn to power and celebrity, and we want to kind of live in the wake of that. In other words, if we know someone that's powerful, we kind of want to live in their wake. And yet Jesus just, is the word eschewed?
Ooh.
Yeah. Eschewed. Power. It's like he resisted it.
Well, but it was a different kind of power. In fact, it was what we would say true power. There's this propped up false image power. There's this, methinks you're trying too much. There's this forcing. There's this, but you're right. I was thinking, it's, Jesus says, the ones who are going to be great among you. You know what real power is? Real power is when you can take a towel and you can wash people's feet, when you can serve people, when you can let go of your image. But see, power is obsessed with image.
Yes.
You see how much in our culture,
right?
So image and looking strong. And it's this funny thing. Even you say, I love how you say how we're drawn to power, because, we like the idea of people serving. That's in concept, what, this is somebody, but it feels a little weak. And you think about a leader. Oftentimes we want that strong leader. We want it, whether it makes us feel more comfortable.
We don't want a leader that looks like a sheep headed off to the slaughtering house.
Right. But so now this gets that's the problem. That's a little bit the way Jesus looked. Because he wasn't championing image.
Right.
He wasn't championing, I am going to get us from out from under the yoke of Rome. You watch me. They're no match for me. That's what people wanted to hear. They wanted to. And then he's talking about loving your enemies. Well, now that's a weak thing, right? Your enemies. What do you do? What does power do to your enemies? What you attack? You show who's right. Boss. You're going to go in. The way of Jesus was the way of the servant. And it was true power, but we are deceived by we're mesmerized
the illusion of power.
The illusion of power.
So
That's
this
good.
is something. Good. Well, and that didn't start with me. It was someone else that was on one of our hikes, and I can't remember who said it. But it was so great. This was the one that we took in July. But we were all talking about the pandemic this year and how it's affected our lives and all of that. And one person said, "Yeah, all it really did was it took away our illusion of control."
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a great word. Because we think we're in control of all sorts of things. And we've talked about this many times, laughing about things that we had planned for 2020 that didn't happen. Over and over again, didn't happen. And I love the way she said it took away our illusion of control. And I'm like, that's a great word. We need to remember that. We are not in control of all of this. It has taught me to be very flexible this year. In other words, instead of because for a while I was just in this kind of discouraged, what do you do, kind of throwing my hand up, and more I'm moving toward, all right, if that doesn't work, like I'm not going to the Sierras this week because California literally is on fire, just and breaks my heart. Now you realize in the West, over 5 million acres have burnt now. I can't even. It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
Well, you're now starting to talk about just how dangerous the air quality is.
Yep.
Okay, you got people dying in fires, but now just the everyday air quality.
Yeah. So one person that was like a health person in California was saying, right now the air quality is like smoking 2 packs a day.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Just brutal. And of course, we've been flying in and out of San Francisco for my last 2 trips.
Right.
And now the pictures I'm seeing of San Francisco, some of them look apocalyptic. Orange glow, and just smoky and
a shout out to Bruce. I mean, part of what he didn't, this flexing, trying to flex.
Shout out to me. I like that. Sierras is just terrible. She goes, even if you could hike up here, you wouldn't want to.
Yeah,
because
you couldn't enjoy
part of the joy of the Sierras
yes.
is what you see, the beautiful views and the vistas and all of that. And with smoke, it's like you're fogged in. So.
Yeah.
So again, one of those pivot points and trying to be flexible this year, because regardless, we can serve. That's another thing that's coming to me out of this year. We can always serve people. We can always love people well, even if we can't do it the way that we thought. Like churches are having to become very, very creative in terms of video venue. I know I was doing a numbers count. I've done over 50 videos now this year because of what we were doing and Journey of Hope and some other videos, which was a major pivot. So I wasn't writing since May. I wasn't writing 500 words a day, but if I take all of the words that I was speaking, I was still creating content every week. And so I've opened up since I'm going to be in town next week, I've opened up my coaching and counseling ministry for another week. I've already got 5 appointments next week. So that's good.
So that means you could sponsor actually Inglorious Pastords.
Invest Your Life Ministries is a nonprofit. We don't sponsor anything.
That's lame.
That's lame. I see what you did with that. You brought up lame again. Right.
But the phrase, I will go back though. I think that I just like what you just said. It's very important in a season where it feels like there are a lot of things we can't control. You said we can still serve.
Oh yeah. Isn't that that's the beauty of what Jesus gave us, something we can do all the time, no matter what.
Now, we like controlling more than serving.
Well, think about it. What if Jesus had said, I want you to be powerful people well, you can't always do that because if you're not on the winning team, but win or lose, you can always serve.
Yeah.
You can always love people well.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought about that. That's good. Jesus gave us the one thing we can do all the time, no matter what.
Right. Even, when life is out of control. And it's, and didn't it, like the Apostle Paul, gets him put in jail repeatedly. Okay. So that's like the ultimate expression of out of control.
Yep.
Because I've thought about
you're in captivity.
What to be in behind bars. So you're very limited. You have very little now you can control.
But you can love.
But you can serve.
Yep.
And so he'd just be sharing Jesus with people, singing songs,
singing and whatnot,
encouraging,
healing people.
And whereas he could even say in Philippians at a certain point, he said, "Oh, these chains have furthered the gospel. They've furthered serving. The chains have not furthered control. Gosh, I don't have much control in my life at all.
Yeah,
but I'm having all kinds of opportunities. There's all kinds of places where I'm able to serve, and even there, you talk about the flex there of realizing I'm not focusing on what I can't do, not focusing on what I can't control. I'm focusing on what I can do." And your word again, Jesus, where you can always serve. In fact, that's the true power in the world. While everyone's clamoring for control, and that's interesting, even with the whole kind of COVID crisis, what we're realizing is there's a lot of power struggles going on. It's part of what makes things uncomfortable. Who's trying to control? Who's trying to manipulate? And here's the thing, they all are. I mean, people, that's the way power works. Power is looking, what's the edge I can get in this pandemic?
The opportunist looks at a virus and goes, can I come up with a vaccine?
Yeah.
But it might possibly be less about serving and more about gaining.
Right.
And this is where, and I don't even know that I haven't answered this yet, but I was in reading Jesus this week. He just talked about, be careful, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. And then another place that I was reading, he said, and you alluded to this on one of your Facebook talks, but, or he says, or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? You know, what am I willing to give up? Is that what he's saying? What am I willing to give up and lose my soul? In other words, it's just that we talk about selling our soul to the devil, but Jesus was the one that coined that term.
Mm-hmm.
That it's possible to do that. You can gain the world. He said, what profit is it really at the end of the day if you gain the world but lose your soul?
It's a terrible trade-off.
Yes, and that's it. Yeah, maybe that's when he said, what will a man give it in exchange for a soul? He was saying, what value can you place on a soul?
Right.
How can you take something that's priceless and then attach a dollar figure to it?
Yeah. Yeah. But you're doing that, you know, whatever you give yourself to entirely, whatever you love, worship, devote everything, go all in on. And so the tragedy, you know, he says to even go in on the whole world. If you were to gain everything, all the possessions, all the power, whatever, and lose your very self, lose your very soul. What a terrible. So here's
what a terrible exchange.
What a terrible exchange. If you got everything in the world you wanted, but end up losing yourself in the process, you're part of it, you're undervaluing your preciousness because you are worth more than everything in the world. It's a terrible trade-off to give yourself to those things. And of course, Jesus, I'm your treasure. I'm what your soul is made for. My way is what, I am your soul. I am your life. Anyway.
So I was reading
the Bible.
And well, no, Marlena was putting me on to some people out there talking about the end times right now. And I
end times.
Yeah, I certainly believe
that word is showing up a little bit more these days. End times.
Well, what I realized is in the culture you and I grew up in, people talk more about the second coming of Christ a lot, or the rapture, or end times, and those kinds of things. And there's maybe been less of a focus on that. And so as I was listening to some of these pastors that are talking about end times and on all of that, I'm always going to go back to Jesus. So I found myself reading in Matthew 24 and 25. And this is what I wanted to talk about today, even though it's awfully late in the broadcast. But I realized Jesus said, all of these bad things are going to happen. He said, see to it that you are not alarmed. And at first I thought he meant, see to it that you're not afraid. And I believe that's part of it. We're not to be afraid of anything. He said we're not to be afraid that these things are happening. But I think he was more on, see to it that you're not surprised by it, that you're caught off guard. Because later on he talks about this, I'm going to come and it's like a thief in the night and you don't know. He said, so basically, I want you to be serving when I come back. I want you to be serving. And it struck me again, and this is what I was thinking through yesterday. There's no... 2020 can't be a wasted year for me or for anyone else. It's a year that we have to say, let's be about serving. Let's be about the will of the Father. Let's just keep doing. Because what if maybe because he goes further into Matthew 24 and he talks about, because of the increase of wickedness, lawlessness, the love of most will grow cold. But he says the gospel of the kingdom will be preached to all nations, and then the end will come. And I'm like, I just want to be about bringing God's kingdom, which is a kingdom of love and serving and caring for others. But I realized there was part of me that, and I've said this before, but let's just kind of get through 2020 and maybe 2021 will be a better year. Maybe we can serve more then. And I'm like, but what if right now is the prime time to serve? You've talked about this. You've alluded to this about, the opportunities that we have now, even with certain things coming to the surface that we've been able to kind of get by before, now we can't. We need to be talking about these things. We need to be moving toward these things.
Well, right. If what we've already been talking about, our sense of control, if our illusion of control has been blown up.
Yeah.
Well, this is leaving people in a place where, oh yeah, I thought I could control more. I felt more comfortable in myself and my strength. And now I'm realizing I'm having more self-doubt. I'm having more.
Yep.
I'm more vulnerable than I realized. And I think people have more questions. I think people have more vulnerability. I think there is more fear. And that's a prime opportunity for serving. I mean, this is the moment. And I'm sort of talking to myself here because I still have this lingering sense that I could still be like we're kind of waiting, and not seizing the moment, which is this is a serving moment,
right? And what made me think is, what if Bruce was waiting for 2021 to really do some serious kingdom stuff and serving, and Jesus returned on December 31st of this year, and like. It's almost like I would be that guy that laid it away in a piece of cloth. I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't want to lose this gift that you've given me. And I'm like, the only way to lose the gift that God's given us is not using it. Because when he finishes that parable, he says, the person who has will be given more. In other words, they've used what they've been given, and that there's been gain from that. So it's that thing of we just stay with it. Jesus would say, work for the night is coming when no man can work. And I don't think we're living frantically. That's not what I mean. But I think sometimes this year, there's been several times this year that I really did sort of want to throw my hands up and fold my arms and go, well, I can't do anything about any of this. So I'm just not going to do anything about any of this. But I'm like, no, there's always things that we can do.
It's funny, I guess, how often we're pulled to retreat or give up. So we run into, again, and I love how this theme is just sort of unfolding here, but we
emerged. The theme emerged.
Where, again, in our powerlessness, we can serve. We can. I just think about how often we're pulled, because this is what I was reading this morning in the analogy in Hebrews 12 about a race. Endure, don't give up, stay with it.
Yep.
The thing about how often
run the race with perseverance.
Runs with perseverance. Yes. Jesus endured, and you stay with it. And I realize again the pull is to quit, is to stop. And now it just reminded me of how many things move our hearts towards that, whether it's personal failure, whether it's struggles, whether the world's out of control, whether it's nothing I'm doing matters anyway. What do all of those lead us to do? Well, let's just retreat. And here's the other thing I've thought about with end times, and it's just comical. You realize the history down through the church is when people felt like they had figured out when the time was. What did they do almost every time? Oh, let's go up on a mountain and wait.
Wait for it.
Let's wait. They missed the very opposite of
what Jesus was saying was, you need to be active.
No, be active. You're actually stay serving. I just love how that keeps coming up time and time again. Keep serving. Keep serving. This is a season of serving. It's a season that may be uncomfortable because we feel less in control. But guess what? Everyone around us is in that same position. And that, again, is a great opportunity to serve.
Yeah.
There are people, I mean, there's more desperation, more questions, more fear. I've been struck by how much COVID fear there is. And then with what I've called the second pandemic of all of our social unrest and racial injustice and the kinds of, which has almost formed a kind of second pandemic. Well, now there's a lot of fear coming out of that. What's this group going to do? I'm seeing a lot of anger, and anger kind of scares us, and I'm seeing some violence in here, and violence on all sides, violence on all parties,
Right.
The times feel kind of scary. But back even the beginning, what you're is God not wanting us to live in fear, but where there's fear around us, let's serve people who are afraid. Let's serve people whose confidence has been shaken. Let's serve people who are ill and lonely and isolated. This is the moment. I mean, I think the word is, yes, seize 2020 is not the lost year.
Seize 2020. That's our theme right now.
Yeah.
No, that's really good because, we've laughingly said, I've just wanted, many times I've said it, Roger, not so much because eBay's been doing great. But I mean,
yay, 2020.
Right. I was like, let's get to, 2021. But that's a great word. Seize the day, seize this year.
Yeah.
Don't let this go. And it's not too late. If you've been like me, like for several months where I was like, I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah.
It's not too late. September 16th, when this podcast is being filmed, to go ahead and work, serve, find that place. Because there's always need. In other words, Jesus told us something to do that can always be done. The greatest among you will be the servant of all.
Yeah.
There's always opportunities to serve. So for me, maybe that's the big takeaway from this year. I'm serving in ways that were different than I anticipated, but they're still profound. They still matter. And that's the thing where I think that the enemy creates the most disequilibrium for us when he says, you don't matter. What little you can do doesn't matter. And
right.
And Bruce sometimes buys into that. I don't matter that much. I'm just doing so little. But Jesus would talk about offering a cup of cold water and a person receives reward. It's assumed that it's hot, that someone is thirsty, that there's a need, and another person takes it upon themselves to serve, to meet that need. And Jesus talks about there's great reward in that.
But again, this is, I think we're going to buy into just like politics buy into the lie of power. What's strong is significant.
I was about to say, what is significant? Yes.
This is what's weighty.
Yeah.
What's weighty is being the president or a governor or a mayor or a pastor. What's significant is being a counselor or being a teacher or being a CEO, somebody who wields power and influence. But Jesus kept blowing that up all the time. And just in reminding once again, the power of serving. And in fact, that is Jesus' power in giving up his life, in surrendering, was actually the greatest expression of power. It's the power that has saved us. It's the power that continues to transform us.
Oh, I just thought of something.
Serving is power, but it doesn't feel like it. So let's not buy the lie, politics is power. Likes and money is power. Serving, giving a cup of cold water, loving people, and whatever's on your mind right now that's ready to say.
No, I just thought it's the thing of where power then is released. So Jesus dies on the cross. It's very weak. He's being mocked. People are saying, yeah, if you're the Messiah, come on down, save yourself another, this whole thing. And in death, this weak, vulnerable state, what follows 3 days later? The most power the world has ever seen.
Right.
A resurrection.
Right.
Resurrection power. Paul even talked about this resurrection power. So instead of having political power or monetary power or even social power, which is a big deal in our culture with the advent of social media, and there are people that have tremendous influence now that would have had none 20 years ago.
Yep.
Because they managed to put together 1 million YouTube followers, which is just fascinating to me. But what followed this death, what followed this weakness, what followed this surrender was resurrection power. Oh, that gets me.
But I'm going to trump that a little if I can.
Can you go bigger than that?
Well,
I thought resurrection power was pretty big.
No.
But Roger, the theologian, is going to take this further.
Well, you're still
with
leaning
a trump
towards
card.
a particular kind of power. It's just that I think the power that led to the resurrection, I mean, so it's all power, but what's the strongest power? The power of the resurrection or the power of love to give up your life? And here's the thing. It's not just, we've talked about this. On the cross, I mean, he's being humiliated and he knows he could say a word and wipe everybody out. He's got absolute power in his hands with a word. People that were mocking him and looking up and laughing at him and saying, you can't do a single thing. And ugly and whatever. I'm saying I don't have that kind of power because I would have zapped him. I would just, boom, you're gone.
So you're saying
right.
that dying on the cross was dynamite power and the resurrection was a bit of a snap and pop.
I'm saying it was a firecracker.
I see what I see your point. Both are powerful. This is that thing because I don't want to take away
power,
from what it leads to. This
right, but that's the result. I think and this is when we serve, we're going to see resurrection power that comes out of serving.
Yes.
You know what you're going to see out of political power is very little, because ultimately we've seen nations and countries and cities that have collapsed and gone. Political power always has an end point.
That's a good point.
Compassion power, serving power,
loving power.
This is the thing. When you're serving people, there is resurrection. There's life-giving. There's things on the other side that politics can't do, that money can't do, that CEOs can't control, that TV conglomerates and actors in movies can't control. So it's this reminder to live in the power of serving, live in the power of love. Don't buy the lie in a season, especially where we feel so powerless and where we want to give up. The comedy is because we don't have as much power, or we don't feel as much in control, or things just seem so chaotic. Again, this is the moment to pivot and say, I'm going to move towards real power.
Yeah.
I'm going to move towards the true power, which could cost you your life. But you think about how powerful, even down through history, how powerful. When we just celebrate, 9/11, we remembered the first responders and people who gave their lives. That serving has a kind of power that politics will never touch. So, I just love that finish. That let's lean into serving power. Let's not grow weary. Let's not give up. Let's not lose 2020. And I loved your word, because I can see this part of my...
Roger's throwing a bone to Bruce here.
Well, once again, but this thing, September, I've watched it. Well, most of the year is gone. So
right. Isn't that funny how we start thinking that way?
No, it is.
Right.
That's another... Wait, you think about it. We've got and what we need... What we need to remember,
an entire quarter of the year.
We say that, although we may not have more than tomorrow, which is another reminder, better serve today.
Yeah. Because
actually, we don't even know if we're going to get to the end of the year.
I don't know that we're going to get to the end of this podcast. Wait for it. By the way, I wanted to mention one other way that they're serving power. Through sponsorship. You knew it was coming. I could tell the way you looked at me. Because
it's an opportunity for people to serve, isn't it?
Sponsorship means power.
It means love. You're taking the whole wrong angle.
No, I'm saying love and power, and the way that we're using it, are synonymous. So a powerful sponsorship is a powerful expression of love.
We would love to be served by you.
Powerfully. So until next time, season 2 is still without a sponsor.
And
good times.
Yes.
And join us next week as Roger talks about
the unscripted word.